Okay, all right, welcome back. We're convening our executive session and we will reconvene at 6 p.m. as the community comes in. Should I be here?
Joe,
Hey, Jen, I can hear you.
awesome.
From this year.
All right, everybody ready? Yeah. Welcome, everybody, to this April 30th school board meeting. Thank you for being here. We will now stand and say the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks again for being here. Can I please get a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
Yeah, all those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Yeah. Can I please get a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Motion to adopt the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Meridian Middle School student recognition. Right out of the gate, Mr. Todd Torrance.
Okay. Get up to advance.
So we've got one more of our student that's coming, so I'm gonna do a little bit of a song and dance here. So our next student gets here.
We figured out.
You knew there'd be something coming, right?
Actually, it might not be a bad idea. We could, there is no public comment.
You wanna,
We could have Rob do his presentation.
Great.
Perfect.
we can definitely.
Okay, and I'll be back. I'll be back.
Oh, how I've missed him in his personality.
You want me to help you out, Rob?
Yeah, I don't move this forward, it's just the.
Yeah.
Just the, and I'll be on my slide.
Okay, we'll come back to student recognition and now we'll
Okay.
go to the reports with Mr. Rob Dunn with food services report.
Well, board, thank you all for having me, Dr. Everett, Kurt. So yeah, this is my yearly presentation of food service and I think we got a pretty good thing going on here. Let's see, first of all, kind of an overview here. I'm gonna talk about participation and projections, training and staffing, what we did, our health department inspections, menu offerings, and then kind of the future of the program. So a lot of numbers on this page. The biggest takeaway is breakfast counts are up 5.4%, mostly at IRE, and lunch is up 7.6%. So that's huge, and that equates to a lot of dollars into food service. So that's very beneficial. Overall, we're still about a 41% free reduced percentage. That's slowly been ticking up over the last 6 or 7 years, but we're still technically not a, we're not a poor district, we're not a rich district, but we're kind of right in the middle there, about 40, 41. So, yeah, those numbers are great. That's participation through March. And if you just want to extrapolate them out, but 7.6% is looking good. So we talked a lot about House Bill 1238. According to my auditor, they're still kind of figuring out year by year. Basically what they're doing is everyone's free in a K4 school, right? So IRE, everybody's free if you're over 30% free and reduced. We're at 43 at IRE, so everyone eats for free. That's why we're having such free participation. But again, technically, they don't know what they're going to do year after year, but taking something away like that away would be pretty detrimental to all parents and whatnot. And you know, the team over there, Renee, Fox, Pam, and Valerie, they're doing about 230 at breakfast and over 500 at lunch. Which, if you know anything about like what most elementaries do, most elementaries have 500 kids in them. We happen to have 8, but 500 is just unheard of. So they're doing a great job and getting kids in and out every day. We have some new staff, which I'm pretty excited about. As we know, Bobby Frost left last year after 30 something years, 28 years. So we have Missy is taking over the middle school here. Missy Stadelman, she came from Rusty Wagon, and she's got a daughter in the office, daughter running start at the high school. I think she's got a grandkid at IRE, so she's kind of entrenched in the district. She's doing a fantastic job this year. And I was able finally to get a delivery driver about 4 months ago, so I'm kind of excited about that.
Can you tell me why you have a delivery driver?
They work 4 hours a week. So they do 2 days of 2 hours. The middle school's our hub. So all our broadline stuff comes in. Tomorrow I'm getting in about 160 cases of product. And so what they do is they come and they disperse it out to IRE into the high school. All the staff, all the trainings we did at the beginning of the year, the civil rights meal pattern. About half my staff has completed the new one that came out. So they all know the deadline on the 14th on that. And then we talked about the audit and health department expectations. So health department, we are required to email requesting 2 inspections each year. That was taken care of. And we received an inspection at IRE in the high school. And we've not received one at the middle school this year. So basically, both IRE and the high school, we had 0 red high risk factors. So they both got perfect scores. The IRE, Renee had been out for a period of time, so it was kind of nice that Pam was able to step up and make sure that they got everything done. Okay, school lunch. Salad bar, I think we do a great job. I put on there the fruit that we offer because, you know, a lot of people don't really, you know, parents don't see it unless they see it. And, you know, we're doing cantaloupe, kiwi, strawberries, pears, apricots, all fresh stuff. So we've got a great salad bar for the kids. They don't enjoy it as much as we do, but you know, all you can do is put it out there. Some of the scratch cook items we're still doing from last year, the green chili enchiladas, tater tot casserole, we had this last week. Both of those are two of my favorite. That's Missy right there. Got the pulled pork. She's making homemade coleslaw, baked beans. She just takes black beans, brown sugar, cooks them up, and those. Anyway, it's a nice little entree there. This is from our holiday meal. This last year we had at the schools. We had the little homemade pumpkin tarts, and then turkey gravy. It's not sliced turkey, but it's kind of like it's gravy with turkey in it. Kids like it.
I
It's
know
good.
it was well received. so
Was
thank
it?
you for
Good.
Doing that, yes, especially from the people serving it. They were.
Yeah, we
excited.
did a holiday meal this year. Next year, well, next year we'll do whatever we do, but. Yeah, I know, I don't know about that. Well, Bobby wasn't here to remind me. Anyway, so yeah, we got the holiday meal in and it was a nice job. So this is our big thing this year. We have muckle sheet coho salmon. And this is Lisa putting some oranges on it, cook it off. That's a plate right there. We've broccoli, salad up in the corner there. It's got cranberries in it. And anyway, it's great. I usually eat 2 portions whenever we do it. What's good? Only what's left.
So all of these beautiful, colorful meals fall within budget.
Yeah.
It's great.
Well, when you're doing 500 kids for lunch at IRE with 3 people, we make a lot of money. I mean, we really do. And then for breakfast as well. So, you know, the state requires that we use that money in food service. And also the salmon is commodity.
So there's another piece, if I can, around the financing that's restricted.
Right.
So we can,
No, I just love that it's colorful, fresh,
yeah,
healthy
Yeah.
food. That's what I'm focused on.
Yeah.
celebrate.
So
Well, that was a directive from my supervisor and we made it happen. And actually the ladies made it happen.
it may be the only colorful, healthy meal a child has, so I love that we're focused
Oh, I
on
think
that.
it's.
Yeah, it's good too. I mean, they do a great job of.
Box mac and cheese, but
We did it once at we did the first time at the high school, we didn't menu it. We just did like 20 portions because we wanted to make sure we didn't fall on our face. And it was good. Lisa did a great job and then we've done it twice at the high school. Each time we've done about 35 portions. And we did it here and we did about 48. So 48 middle school kids. I didn't expect that, but you know, it turned out great. It was either that or pizza. So a lot of kids get pizza anyway, right? So, but it was good. So that's what we got going on. Their program going forward, and one thing I want to say about the salmon too, Lori at the high school, the second at the high school, she gets creative with leftovers. So it's some leftover salmon. The next day she made salmon cream cheese and put on bagel. We sold like 8 of those. So anyway, you know, getting creative. It's good. Yeah. We're going to continue to encourage scratch cooking and preparation, and then provide leads, things they need, you know, ovens, make sure they work, all that good stuff. And then always increasing the salad bar offerings is good. And then increasing some salads and grab and go entrees. Any questions for me?
When did Missy start?
She started beginning of the school year.
Began to go.
Actually, she started beginning of the school year, end of last. She had subbed for us.
Yeah.
And then she started beginning of the school year and they allowed Bobby to work with her for, I think, for the first month. Because this is kind of the hub, like everything comes, all the commodities come here. The broadliner, all the produce comes here, that gets delivered out, so. Kind of having, you know, overseeing that, and she does a great job. And they do a lot here too, so.
it's really great to see the push for scratch meat.
Yeah.
I recall when my children were younger, it felt like everything was coming out of a frozen box and just being
Yeah.
heated. And
It-
that,
Yeah, it
That
is a
was-
balance, it is kind of a lead a horse to water situation. You offer it, hope 46 kids take it. And hopefully next time 52 kids take it and
Right,
You know.
and it wasn't even the offering so much as just the process was we were feeding the kids frozen food and
Yeah.
reheating it in our
yeah,
cafeterias and that was. I remember being fed in the basement of the old MHS. And they were cooking their big batches of chili and it was scratch stuff that was
Yeah.
being fed. So I'm glad to see it come full circle over
Yeah.
back to that. My actual question is, when you say we're at 41% free and reduced, do you have any tidbits on are we missing the data? How do we get more information?
No.
on-
when I got here 5 years ago, I looked back like the 3 years previous. And we were like at 37.5, then we were at 38, then we were 30, this was before I got here. And we're just kind of creeping up a little bit. I think to do a great job at IRE about getting applications filled out, probably all the schools. But I mean, I don't think we are. I don't think we're missing data.
I think what's really difficult is the mechanism is an application, and a lot of times the benefit is free meals if you do it. And then when we have a program where everyone gets paid, they get a meal for free regardless of whether you turn an
Right,
application in.
right.
It's super hard to get responses.
Right,
Right.
okay, that's what I was wondering.
And we have other things like students at the high school level can get waivers for SATs and things of that nature that are free and reduced. So a lot of people don't realize that that's a benefit of having that understanding, but it's always a struggle. And I think Rob's right. Lisa and the principals are doing a great job, but the mechanism needs to change.
And my understanding is the legislature understands that because, they're seeing other districts that people aren't filling applications because the little kids are eating free anyway. So why do this extra thing? So, who knows what it looks like a year, 2 years, 5 years from now.
I would say, yeah, I mean, getting my second grader, fifth grader to eat at home is difficult. And like I've been to IRE and watched how everything is just run. It's phenomenal to watch. So
Yeah.
It's so
Controlled
great.
chaos.
Yeah, it is, yeah. But every kid sits down, they're relatively eating and not messing around. It's great. It's awesome.
Great, crews, have fun. And then thank you, everyone. I've been really enjoyed my time here. So this is my last year. So I've got 2 more months left and then it's gonna retire. Go off to the sunset.
You're gonna hate it.
Everyone I've talked to, everyone I talked to said, the only thing they do differently is they would have done it sooner.
Yeah.
So,
Well, congratulations.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks a
thanks for
lot.
everything. Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you for your leadership and how you run it.
Yeah.
Last 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Appreciate that. All right, thanks, guys. Have
Thank
a good night.
you.
Can I add that Rob just passed state audit, with Washington State Auditor's Office too, so we didn't have any exceptions there for recommendations. Nice
Good
job.
job.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're gonna circle back. All right.
Big loss.
Bruce and I went to school with Missy.
All right.
So it's cool to see like Lauren and I working.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a little bit different twist, but I'm real excited about this opportunity to highlight a couple of our students here. Think about our ML students that are in, identified as, multilingual learners. So wanted to share a little bit about what that program really means, because there's like a couple of different acronyms that fly around with that. And then be able to have a couple of our students just kind of share a story. And they were a little nervous, but I promised them it'll be awesome. And so they'll be up here in a second. And then I'd also like to introduce Judith Zink. Jay-Z is in the house. I'll invite you up here with us. And yeah, come on up here. Come on up here. Just so Judith does a fantastic job making sure that all of our students feel comfortable and welcomed here in our middle school. So the work that you do is fantastic. And so not only recognizing our students, but also the work that you're doing with them too. So As I go through this, if there's things that you wanna,
I will bounce right in there.
you will bounce, all right. So who are our multilingual learners? So MMLs are, recent, immigrants and students born in the United States, come from homes where two or more of the languages are spoken and bring rich and colorful perspectives to our school. So thinking about that where, students have the opportunity to be able to have multiple languages that they speak. And so that's a pretty cool deal, I think. And so I'm really excited for them to be able to share some of their experiences. Thinking about that sense of belonging. So if you can remember back in school and anytime, I mean, that you transitioned from elementary to middle school, there was that, oh, I don't know, I'm so scared, or, going from middle school to high school. But now even think about if you have some of those language barriers, that make it difficult to really understand everything that's going on. And so here are some ways that, that we want to be able to create that sense of belonging. So supporting inclusion and engagement in diverse classroom settings, creating a safe environment for students to learn, thinking about that safe place to kind of explore and make mistakes and learn, fall and grow along the way. Feeling seen and heard and valued, confidence to speak up and contribute. That's really sometimes it's really a tough task to be able to come in and say, hey, what do you think? Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're thinking?
So some of the ways that we do that, well, I'm gonna be back in a couple weeks, or May 14th, to talk to you a little bit more about what I do in the classroom and how we work with the kids. But just so I'll just give you some examples to make it a little more concrete. So the supporting inclusion is literally, what did you do in your home country? So recently we had a health class, and the focus, they brought in a speaker, and the focus was on body autonomy. And so for some of my students, even after we translated and we went over, they had no clue what was going on. So instead, we talked about, well, is it okay if someone, and they all said, oh yeah, my teacher did it all the time. We were always hit if we didn't follow along. So, okay, so, it is one way for them to tell me where they're coming from, and then for us to be prepared for that. One more from one of the things that I noticed when I first started here was that the MLs were at the back of the room. They were not speaking enough, and they weren't bringing their own. There's a ton of pride in all middle school students, and these guys, I didn't hear it. So we just pushed just little bits, little things, and it really made a difference. Oh, yay. Another student's here. So, yeah, I just want to add a little bit more to that to give you an idea of what that means.
How this sense of belonging impacts our students. And so you think about that, here are some areas that academic performance, emotional well-being, motivation, and engagement, especially critical for our ML students facing those language barriers, super challenging. Some challenges for our ML students, language barriers, cultural differences, stereotyping or bias, social isolation, and then limited representation in curriculum. What does belonging look like? I know you and I talked a little bit, but you talked some about this too. Some of the things that you see in your classroom.
One of the first things when I started was we weren't sure where my classroom was gonna be. It was probably gonna be in a portable. And I thought, cool, portable. That's actually great. They have better eating and they have AC. So yeah, I'm in. I was pretty excited about that. And they put me in the room to start just over here. And I was like, oh, this is the nicest classroom ever. I've worked in some really awful, but some really nice places. There was a lot of windows. I got plants. I was really excited. And then I was told, no, you're moving. And so I went inside the building. And I was where the nurse is now. And it was fine, it was just small space, I don't need a big space, and I noticed that. The kids were coming in really quickly, they were coming in between classes, they were coming before school. And I made the mistake of cutting my hair with bangs, short, and I was Gringadora. Within 27 seconds, every Spanish speaking student would call me Gringadora. There was a definite sense of belonging from their point of view. I was just a mockable creature. But I said to Todd when they were ready to move me out to the portable that I don't think it's a great idea. Like, I understand there's a distance going on, but if we move me away, we're gonna be moving all of those kids away. They won't be coming through. And so now I'm in room 5. I'm right, really central.
Right in the center.
And my room is busy between, before, during lunch. Not all the kids come at lunches, right now, grade 8's a really big thing, and they all come in, they listen to music and close the door and try to block it and then dance. Lots of dancing. Eighth period, eighth grade lunch, so.
Yeah,
So for them, they feel better, and we have other kids come in, kids that aren't Hispanic, kids that aren't, they are coming in more and more. So it's more of a sense of everybody as opposed to just one group. But it's also a place they can speak Spanish and feel comfortable.
so thinking of that story that you just heard, you know, that scenario, feeling respected, valued and included, being kind of in the center of everything, having strong peer and teacher relationships. Talked about that, seeing one's culture and language reflected in the environment, you know, the dancing and feeling comfortable, participating in meaningful ways. So those are, you know, some of the ways that we look to build on that. So now we're ready for.
Numero uno. This is Miguel, he's an 8th grade student, and he'd like to share a story with you. So I'm gonna stand really close to Miguel.
Hi, my name is Miguel, and I'm an 8th grader, and I've been at Meridian since 5th grade. I'm really thankful that the chance to speak to you with you today, and I'll share my story. Outside of school, I love playing video games and baseball. If I had to describe myself in 3 words, I would say kind, caring, and appreciative. One thing people might not know about me is that I speak 3 languages, which is in my main language, Spanish and English. My younger brother and I are the only English speakers in our family, so I often translate for my parents. Whether it's helping paying rent or ordering food at restaurants or reading paperwork. I'm proud to help my family, but I'll be honest, translating all the time can get really tiring, especially when I don't know all the right words. I started learning English in school, and even though I enjoy being bilingual, and sometimes it's nice having a private language with my family. Language barrier is still tough. It takes a lot of effort to switch between language in my head, especially when I'm in class trying to keep up with my homework. School has mostly been a positive place for me. I feel safe and welcome at Meridian. I like seeing my friends and staff here are chill and patient. My teacher checks in with me, and I appreciate that my classmates includes me in activities and love that someone friend reads me in the morning. It makes me feel I belong. If I could change one thing, it would be to encourage more friendship between students in different backgrounds and to support peers, translate in class. I also think it would help to have more staff who speak Spanish and students in home language, especially for kids who are to new to this country. A student welcome group or community could help new students feel included right away. I hope the school board remembers that even if we speak Spanish, English, well, we still face unique challenges. It's not just about learning a language, it's about being understood, supported, and included. For my future, I want to stay in this area and become a police officer so I can help Spanish speaking communities and support people when they're in trouble. I like to go to a local college, but I recently found out there are scholarships and grants that could help. Who can really support students like me by sharing that kind of information earlier. Thank you for listening to me. I hope my story helps you to see the importance of culture, understanding, and empathy in our school.
Man, how good is that?
What was your favorite video game?
It was probably, also.
Brawl Stars? Ooh, my son loves that one too. Yeah.
Weird.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah.
Yes. So, she's going to read hers in
This is
Spanish, and Jesus, a grade 8 student, is going to translate.
Ok. Hola, mi nombre es Marjorie, estoy en sexto grado. Hablo español en casa y comencé a aprender inglés a los 10 años, incluso antes de mudarme aquí desde Honduras. Una de las cosas que más me gusta de saber dos idiomas es que puedo ayudar a otros estudiantes en clase. Disfruto mucho aprendiendo, especialmente cuando practico inglés con mis amigos hispanohablantes y no hispanohablantes.
This is Marjorie, and she's a computer. I speak Spanish at home and started learning English when I was 10 years. Even before I moved here from Honduras, one of my favorite things about knowing two languages is that I help other students in class. I really enjoy learning, especially when I get to practice English with both speaking and non-speaking friends.
En Meridian me siento bienvenido, disfruto jugando voleibol y fútbol con mis amigos, yendo al parque con mi familia y danzando en la iglesia. Los domingos y viernes estoy orgullosa de mi cultura de la comida hondureña y estoy aprendiendo a cocinar con mi mamá. También me encanta la iglesia. Es muy importante para mí.
I'm Meridian. I feel welcome. I like playing volleyball and soccer with my friends, going to the park with my family, and dancing at church on Sundays and Fridays. I'm proud of my culture and the food from Honduras, and I'm learning to cook with my mom. I also love church. It's very important too.
Algo quiero que la junta escolar entienda que lo difícil que puede ser para los recién llegados da miedo cuando todo es nuevo y está en un idioma diferente. Espero que los adultos se tomen el tiempo de comprender lo que sentimos y no de espacio para creer con apoyo. Creo que los profesores también podrían estar más abiertos a aprender de los hispanohablantes, que es positivo cuando se trabaja en ambos sentidos.
One thing I want the school board to understand is how hard it can be for newcomers. It's scary when everything is new and different neighbors. I hope adults take time to understand what we're feeling and give us space to grow with support. I think teachers could be more open to learning from Spanish speakers too. It's nice when it goes both ways.
En el futuro quiero ir a la universidad y ser médico o policía para poder ayudar a la gente, especialmente a quienes hablan español. Espero que mi escuela nos ayude a enseñarnos desde pequeños la universidad, la graduación y cómo estudiantes como yo podemos alcanzar nuestros sueños.
In the future, I want to go to college and become a doctor or a police officer. so I can help people, especially those who speak Spanish. I hope my school can help me teaching us early about college graduation and how students like me can reach fourth grade.
Gracias por escucharme y apoyarme en los apoyos a los estudiantes que aprenden en más de un idioma. Tenemos mucho que ofrecer y no esforzarnos a dar lo mejor de nuestros cada día.
Thank you for listening to me and for supporting students for learning in more than one language. You have a lot to offer and we're trying our best every day.
Right. All right. So that was pretty powerful. I am so proud of these students to be able to come up and stand in front and put themselves out there. And that's
These are not public speaking students.
That's
So you know, they're not,
They are
really
now.
what this is about.
they agreed to do that,
Yeah,
but they wanted to.
yeah. So,
I think the courage to do that is really phenomenal. So thank you very much. Nice job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. That was awesome.
I did want to share, coming from a Hispanic family. We were not able to celebrate our culture and our differences in the fifties and sixties. My family settled here. So it's very nice to see you come up here and speak and share, and that you feel like you belong, because that wasn't the story of my family when they first got here. So to know that you feel at home here and that you're being valued and heard, it gives me hope. So, thank you.
tell you what, it's a pretty good day if you can do some laughing and crying all in one day. Wrap it up with a good hug and you got the whole package. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judith.
All right, that's a tough act to follow there.
Should we do finance?
All right. Todd, you,
Oh, yeah. I got that. No, that's-
In his pocket.
Oh, yeah.
With your phone.
District resources.
all right, food service. We saw that once.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm here today to share a little bit about our counseling and wellness report. Two things I want to focus on today. First is under counseling, I want to talk about the, oops, hitting the wrong button there. So let me go back for just a second. So starting with student health services, so that's gonna be our school nurses, it's gonna be our health room assistants and the work that they do in the district. And then I also want to talk about behavioral health support. Specifically, I want to zero in on the partnership that we have with the ESD for the mental health practitioners. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but it's actually a really cool program that we're able to provide to our students. And it's pretty unique when we look at what's happening in some other places right now. So first, I want to start with successes, and that first bullet point is a huge success for us because we're one of the only school districts in the area that can say we have a mental health practitioner at all three levels in our district. We have one at the elementary school, middle school, and the high school now. This year we added one at Irene Ryder. Combined, Laura's received 151 referrals to her for supports from families, staff members, kids themselves. And 75 of those students are receiving services through one of those three people. So it's a pretty impactful system that we've been able to put together over the last few years, and using really grants to help support it, along with that partnership with the ESD. So I'm, caseloads are full, like they're hopping, and the best part about those 75 kids is each of those mental health practitioners are available for kids for services over the summer also. So they come on campus 1 day a week. Last year, we did it at the high school. We'll have to figure that out if we're gonna do that again this year for all of them. And it was a great way for kids to stay connected with the supports that they were receiving throughout the school year so that, you know, they have some continuity in that. One of the big successes in health services has been the triage process that we put in place in an effort to try to maximize the efficiency of that department. So a lot of times kids were going to teachers saying, I don't feel good. They were just going to the health room. And so what that did was really bog down the system and really kind of probably resulted in kids going home a lot more frequently than they necessarily needed to. So that triage form has been really helpful, a lot of the work. And I think one of the things that you see over at Irene Ryder right now with the increase in student attendance is obviously that's been a big focus for Tyler. But Amber Erdman, who's the nurse over at Irene Ryder, really attributes a lot of kids being and staying in class to that triage form. So I really want to call out the work that they've done that. They do it differently. You know, at Irene Ryder, they use a Google form. Up here at the middle school, they use a Qualtrics form for that. But it's been really helpful for them in being able to focus on the supports that they needed to focus on.
Hey, Erin. Sorry, it's Jana. I'm in the middle.
No, I know. How are you, Jana?
Hi. Before you move on from that, can you explain the credentials and education someone needs to hold those?
The mental health practitioner position?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they are all master's level. So they've gone to school for this, so to speak. They've been through a mental health counseling program. They've received a mental health licensure or credential. There is with that comes things like HIPAA. So, you know, there is a health department component to that where they have to have their they have to keep up with their licensure every few years. So there's specific classes they have to take and different things, areas of focus and everything. Does that answer your question, or is there more you'd want to know?
Nope, that was it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, and if you do have more questions about that, I'm happy to share who the mental health professionals are, kind of what their systems look like. If you guys want me to send that to you in this next week, I'm happy to do that. We can send it through James.
I think it's just great for us to understand the work and education and continuing education all of our staff needs to go through.
Yep. And these folks in particular, there's specific things they have to receive education on. So, you know, it's not just they can go and take any classes. There are specific focused areas, and I can get more of that information to you if you want.
So they aren't necessarily masters in like clinical psychology or
They have a master's in mental health.
masters in.
Or it's also possible for like social work. A lot you'll see, yeah.
And one, just on,
Go ahead.
because it was a topic before, each one of these folks come to us at a third of their cost, right? So this,
Yep.
for one person is the cost of all three because of the grants or the ESD.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's really unique for us.
Yeah, it's a really, I will say, in talking with other people who handle this part of their work in other districts, we're pretty lucky to have what we have. So I feel very grateful for the work that Kurt did, working with the health department to get that in place. Laura with working with the ESD, and then just the ESD being willing to help us push through and get some extra support for our kids.
And how long is that grant available to us?
We have it for two more years.
Yeah.
It also is, you know, as we look at funding questions, something that gets on the bubble, so we'll manage that as we see.
Yep. For sure. So looking at areas of growth in both of these parts of our district, our mental health professionals have full caseloads, like I mentioned. That means we have waiting lists. They do a really good job of assessing as they are working with students. And so when a student is ready to be exited off their caseload, they do go through a process for that. And they are looking for opportunities to do that. However, that's different for each kid. And so, you know, we did this year have, we lost the in-building support from Compass Health. And so, you know, that's something we're gonna have to talk about, and I'll talk about that in just on the next slide. Like, we have more kids than we have, even though we have support for right now, even though we have a lot of support compared to others. Yes, Michelle?
So when you're saying they have a waiting list, are these students who do not have access on a personal level to mental health?
Laura's continuing to try to help support kids. A lot of the kids that are being seen in the buildings are kids who struggle with access outside.
Okay,
And
that's what
so so yes, some kids we continue to come back to trying to find resources. It's not like Laura's like, oh, you're on a waiting list, and then she moves on. She's continuing to keep working on it, so.
Because I know there's waiting lists
Everywhere,
in
yep,
private practice.
for everyone,
as
yep,
well. Yeah,
yep.
okay.
You know that from your sister's practice.
I do.
Yeah, so, one of the things that is going on at Irene Ryther is this focus on increasing student attendance is leading to students coming to school sick sometimes. And so, it's, I mean, it's a tricky thing, to navigate a little bit. And so, you know, a lot of times there's phone calls home and parents are, well, you want my kids at school? And we're like, yeah, we want them at school healthy. And so, you know, continuing to educate the community around, these are the types of things that we really want kids to stay home for. You know, allergy season is always one of those times where things get tricky a little bit. That last bullet point, compliance with policy 6700. So, food at schools. And, you know, if, for those folks who have students at Irene Ryther, I know a lot of messages have come out around the types of foods that come in for classroom parties and different things. And, you know, one of the things that I'd say is, you know, 5 years ago, we had 3 type 1 diabetics in our district. This year we have 9. And so, and students who are getting identified older, and all of a sudden we just find out we have a diabetic. Like, we just had that happen a few weeks ago. And so the food that comes in really does matter. And so that's going to be an ongoing area for us to work with, educating our parents about, yeah, we want you to celebrate the great, good, big things in the classroom and stuff, but we got to do it in a way that's going to keep our kids safe and not set ourselves up for something, you know, bad maybe happen to one of our kids.
So are we seeing that needing greater attention at IRE as opposed to?
Here's what I would say. I would say, so I will say, when I was in the high school, we had an incident with a peanut butter cup. So, you know, I think it happens at every level. I will say, and I give Tyler a lot of credit, that Tyler's really leaned into this with staff and making sure that staff understands so that staff can reinforce it. It's everyone being on the same page, and, you know, that sometimes takes a little bit of time. So
Just wondering if the high school, like, the kids are self-monitoring a little bit better.
they do, well, I hope so. But every now and then, like I said, you get surprised. Future challenges, like I said, the type 1 diabetic situation in the district, 3 5 years ago, 9 this year. Increase in seizure disorder challenges, more EpiPens, just things that we have to monitor. So something like outdoor ed, which is a really great program for us to offer, becomes a pretty tricky thing to support as we go, because we got to make sure that we are keeping kids safe when they go on these trips. Continuing to find more ways for students to find behavioral health supports. That's going to continue to be a need, just like it's a need in our community for people who aren't kids. And then staffing in health services. James talks about, you know, budget challenges and different things. And we do a really good job, I think, in our district compared to a lot of other districts of making sure that we have folks on boots on the ground to help support kids. But as budgets get stretched, resources get stretched for continuing to keep ourselves staffed at that level. And so our staff does a really good job. I'm really proud of Stacy King, Amber, Jenny Knutson, and Brenna Ahmet and the work that they do with our kids, and they do it. Stop by the health room sometime. It's a hopping place, let me tell you. So it can be pretty stressful. I got for you guys. Any questions or?
Sounds like a tough job.
No, yeah. And I'll get more information on the mental health professionals to you guys, so you know who it is, and a little bit more about maybe what their specific programs are looking like, the specific programs of support.
So we know that we're asking a lot of our nurses.
Mhm.
I mean, there's strikes going on at the hospital, right? So what are we doing to support and care for our team members in that role? So that they don't have to burn, I mean, we know that it's.
Yeah.
Turn and burn and.
Well, I mean, I have a lot of flexibility with our staff, and, you know, I look at, you know, this year we have a nurse who's taking time to help take care of her family. And we're trying to navigate it the best we can. It's also not the easiest position in the world to
Right.
backfill when you have someone step out of it. So, you know, flexibility, understanding, you know, I have made a joke with Julie several times, whether it's this part of our district or special ed, like, I feel like every time I turn around, we have something else going on for one of our staff members that we need to support, you know, through a tough moment or family situation or different things. And that's a big one. I think Amber and Stacy have a lot of voice in the support of kids. You know, I check in with them really frequently. I know both of them check in with the building principals and have a lot of respect from everyone who's working with them. So, yeah, we do our best. I mean, it's a tough
I'm
job.
just asking what we're doing to fill their tanks, because we know that we're like asking
Yeah.
a whole lot.
Yeah, and I think that's a good question for all of our staff, really, because I think that when you work in education, your tank gets drained pretty quick. So, but, yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on, new business.
Woo-hoo.
First review, facility naming and dedication committee recommendation.
Hi all, thank you for having me. I know I was at it kind of a little bit late. We met as a group this past April 16th, I believe, and came to a conclusion about what we liked. The PowerPoint's on here, Angie, if I keep going.
That's stopping.
Oh, I know.
We have it,
Oh, you guys have a PowerPoint?
but we have just that.
Totally. Okay. No, that's fine. I'll look at that. So anyways, I'll go through it as if I have the PowerPoint. So anyways, we met as a group twice. We had the option of meeting like 4 or 5 times to kind of see what we wanted to do. The committee was made up of former athletic director Steve Miller, who's a community member, Randy Kirk, who's a community member, also works for the district, has been here a long time. Shane Stacy, who's a current coach, former athlete, Eden Bernardi, who is a current student athlete. Myself, obviously, Mark Simmons was part of the group, and Vaughn Hagen was also part of the committee. So we had a good group of people who had been reaching out and asking about being part of the next committee after we did Diane's ceremony and everything. Sat down, talked about it for a while, came up with a bunch of names, and one name kind of came to the top, and that name was Bob Evans. So for those of you who have been around the district or who would have lived in the area. The name probably sounds familiar. Bob was a longtime coach and teacher at Meridian. He coached for a very long time, racked up 333 wins, 25 playoff appearances, 19 league championships, 10 state semifinal appearances, 6 state championship game appearances, 3 state championships. And his influence, it goes beyond the wins and the losses and the titles and all of that. If you know Bob at all, you know the type of guy he is, the type of person he is, the type of coach he still is, since he's still volunteering his time. The type of teacher he was, just a great guy. The other names that, and I'll talk about Bob a little bit more here, but I want to make sure we recognize the other individuals that were discussed. Stephen Auld was a former athlete who passed away very, very early in his life, but he was coaching at the time and then had to step away for health reasons, passed away. Mike Crosseller was a longtime assistant coach with Bob at Meridian, and Crosseller is also back helping coach. He just kind of showed up last year and we got him all squared away. If you know Mike, he is another fantastic individual, quirky, funny. There are a lot of other words I could use to describe Mr. Crosseller, but I had the great opportunity of being his student, much like I was Bob's student, also coaching, being coached by Mr. Crosseller, and then also coaching with him until he retired from coaching before he unretired from coaching. And then we also talked about Dick Jabora, who's a longtime Meridian coach and teacher. Ron Beckbed, who's a dedicated community member, supporter, and a super fan of Meridian athletics. Ron passed away not too long ago, had put in lots of time and effort into the community, into athletics, donating his energy, financially. And so we went through and talked about all of these people. But yeah, again, Bob, fantastic guy, and very deserving in our mind. Clearly, we're going to allow the board to make the decision about what you would like to do. But it is the committee's recommendation that you would move forward with Bob Amesfield. We've talked about, and I'll just give you a little bit more information. I know there's a lot that needs to go on still, but the group wanted me to recommend a couple things. So we were hoping that we would be able to have a planned celebration, barbecue / tailgate for after the game, formal sign unveiling. There's a concept that I attached that's pretty rough. So just heads up, this is not a finished copy by any means. This is just me messing around and trying to put some stuff together. We want to do, this is actually the idea of Mark, Michelle's brother, who was gracious enough to be part of our group. But he said, what about like a stencil, and we could like spray it with the signature, kind of like what we have on Diane Access and Court. We have our signature. It'd be great if we had field turf, and then it'd be permanent, but also can't have everything we want. So potential thing we could do is talk to Grandview Signs, ask them to create a stencil for us. They just throw that sucker down on the ground, spray it, and right there on the 25s, like they have in the NFL, the NFL logo. And we think that would look pretty cool.
You didn't have to explain that to me.
Yeah, I was like,
That's a good idea too.
Yeah.
when Mark brought it up, I was like, man, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And then we talked about a pregame ceremony with speakers, including former athletes, assistant coaches, current and former athletic directors. I can be left out of it if need be. That's totally fine. I don't mind. Superintendent and whoever else we kind of decide needs to or would like to speak. Modeling it after Diane Axelson's event. We probably would like to keep it pretty similar. So we probably use the model just like that. And then I did, just like I talked to Diane when her name popped up as the #1 person, I wanted to reach out to Bob to see if this is something he'd be comfortable with. You know, Bob, he can be a prickly guy sometimes. And in my mind, I'm sitting, I'm like, oh my gosh, this would go one of two ways. He could say, absolutely not. What a ridiculous idea. Like, don't even mention my name. It's just way off to one side. But the conversation was actually great. He said, okay, yeah, that'd be okay. And then he said, well, I don't know, like maybe yeah, I'm not really the person to talk to about this. And I was like, okay, well, is Pam there, his wife? Oh, yeah, hold on. And I hear some talking in the background, all of a sudden Pam grabs the phone and she's laughing. I was like, hey Pam, how's it going? She's like, good. Yeah, Bob just told me that you guys wanna like name the bathrooms after him or something. It's like, oh my gosh. So I was like, no, we're talking about the field. She's like, oh, that's great, like, but like, he totally had convinced his wife that we were gonna put Bob Ames' bathroom about the bathroom or something, so. Very, very Bob, if you know him at all.
Yeah.
So anyways, again, very crude illustration here, but this is kind of the idea, right? Bob Ames Field. If you look at the current scoreboard that we have at the high school for the stadium field, the bottom right-hand corner, when we originally installed it back in 2017, it said Aquafina. It was blue and it had white writing. Well, time does not do nice things, the sun with that, so it's kind of faded out, which is kind of nice. Since Walton Beverage has not given us money to renew that Aquafina sign. And so the idea that the group had was to figure out maybe a picture of Bob put up there or a caricature. There are many Bob Yodas or Yoda Bobs or just cool pictures of him that could go up on the scoreboard if that's something the committee feels that we should do. If you've been to Bob Tisdale Field up at Mount Baker, they have like a hand-drawn picture of Bob Tisdale at Nooksack. I don't think they do, and I don't remember the name of their field, but it is also named. So that is an option.
Sid Lambert.
Sid Lambert, thank you. Michelle's brother Mark also had the awesome, and I don't think this is something we should do personally, but if the board decides it's something you want to do, but he said, you know, it'd be really cool if we had like, Bob always wore, and you can see it in this picture, but a backwards Hawaiian rainbow hat. We should like get a giant backwards Hawaiian rainbow hat and just hang it on the corner of the scoreboard, so it just hangs up.
I actually said that, I agreed, it like, but in bronze or a metal.
Yeah, I was like, man, that's another very unique idea. I leave all those decisions up to people who are higher up than me to make, but I think very, very cool. So that is our, not mine, that is our hope that you as a group would decide that that is something we should do. And we believe he is a very deserving person that has made a long-lasting positive impact in the community. Looking just at this group, we have former players, we have former coaches, we have people whose children have played for him, we have, you know, siblings, and people who have been taught by him. I know Jana's not here, but and Michelle. I
Oh,
assume-
I'm here.
Yeah,
And I was a cheerleader.
yeah. So I think everyone here has probably a Bob story or, you know, a story of a Bob story that they've heard. So
He was also the driver's ed. He taught me how to drive. And he also influenced all of us with the lovely Hawaiian culture.
oh
I
yeah,
think that was, for Laurel, that was a big deal. Like he was always quick to share his culture and not for himself.
so
Do
does anybody
we have feedback on the board?
I'm a yes.
Well, we'll come
What do we
back,
do?
we'll
Okay.
come back with a second. I don't know why it says June though.
I corrected,
Oh,
Because May 14th now.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I corrected it out.
Thank you. Yeah, so it'll come back for a vote next time.
On the porch.
I think it's long overdue.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do we?
Absolutely.
To get the committee to attend
Yep.
the approval board meeting?
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, any other questions?
Pretty simple.
I'm looking forward to the tailgate. party.
Absolutely. Should be Hawaiian theme probably.
Yes, yes.
There we go. See?
And picking pig roast, Bob likes a good pig roast.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bryant.
Thank you to the committee for their work on that.
I will relay that to her. Thank you. I'm gonna leave. I got a unified soccer game.
Thank you.
All right, next up, Dr. Everett, to present the La Europa Academy agreement.
So I'm actually gonna defer to Aaron on this. This concerns our student that was in Utah and was brought back. And it's a transitional placement. So just if you could quickly give an overview and how well it's going.
Yeah, the student has returned to another placement, to help support transition, back to family and school. The previous placement terminated very quickly, due to just how the program runs. Student's been there for a month. By all accounts, it's a very successful placement for the student. We are working diligently to have the student return. The hope is that it will be a short placement. And the idea is to move from a much more clinical, supervised program to move more towards what that student will see when they return to school, which is going to be, home, school without people supervising all the time. And interaction with just larger groups of people. The student did come home, did have some interaction on campus. It was successful, but that was one of the things that was very overwhelming. In the short times on campus was just the sheer amount of energy and people on campus going from a place of, 35 kids to 485 is a lot. So they are working hard with the student to gain the skills to be successful when they return.
So this will also come back May 15th, so. And this should be fully safety net eligible.
Yes, it's in the application for next week.
Good.
So the $85,000 is reimbursable.
Yeah, so
It should be, yeah. Yeah, I'm putting it in the application that we submit next week. So, yeah.
Okay.
And I was under the impression that it was students maybe went for placement based on like a behavior situation. But in these situations, is it really in the best interest of the child's safety that they go to these? And
Yeah.
nothing like of this nature is available in Washington State,
There's
correct?
nothing like this in Washington State. And I think what I would say, Michelle, is it could be a lot of different reasons why. And when we talk about safety and the behavioral piece could be a component of that. But yeah, for what we are talking about, it's safe related. Yeah.
Moving on, first review, Boys and Girls Club data sharing agreement.
So this is an agreement that surfaced after Monday, because Tyler Dawkins and I met with Heather Powell from the Boys and Girls Club of Whatcom County. And we are also partnering with Boys and Girls Club as part of the Limitless Learning 4-year project that we have. And we had the idea, Boys and Girls Club of Whatcom County had partnered previously with Mount Baker with a 21st Century grant, and they were providing after-school support, both academic and other activities. And that came to a conclusion a couple of years ago. There was not a 21st Century grant opening last year, but they have opened it up this year. They have a grant writer, and we will be working with them with serving students at the elementary and at the middle school. That's the plan. It will be to provide some, again, academic support as well as some activities, social, emotional, arts, STEM, some career outlook. So different things that will provide support both after school and then probably in the morning on Fridays as well. So it could be really helpful. We'll have some pieces that we have to figure out as we put the grant together, transportation and things of that nature. But this is the data sharing agreement so that we can have the teachers that they employ work with our teachers to understand where students are and how to help them meet the targets that they have to close gaps. So That's what this is. So this
For
will also,
ML students, will there be specific supports for ML students?
so there, we have ML students participating.
Okay.
So they have criteria around students who are 1 and 2 grades behind. So there's a population that is targeted in the 21st century grant. And then it's also open to some siblings as well. So we're working through what that could look like, but we're talking about approximately 160 students.
Who was the provider previously of after-school activities that was available at IR?
YMCA.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So this is a 5-year endeavor.
And does YMCA not offer that anymore?
I'm sorry.
Does YMCA not offer that?
That wasn't the model of YMCA. That was just a activity childcare option for families.
Okay. The one question I had was like the data sharing, attendance grades, behavioral assessment, report cards. Can we share those things with an outside organization, or do we need like written like authorization from the parents that are gonna do that?
So this is actually what we're providing is academic and other supports for them. And so that's why the agreement is coming before you to allow us to have that relationship so that we can engage in that. We wouldn't have, like, no one's being forced to join. So families that do want to have their kids be involved, there's an expectation of 85% participation. So there will be some orientation and some sharing of what is involved in the programming.
So are we giving access without parental consent to the data, or do they share the data after the child is enrolled?
So what we're talking about is how do we communicate with Boys and Girls Club and their teaching staff where students are at any given time. So this is a component of applying for the grant. You're jumping way ahead to us actually engaging with this work without having talked to parents yet to be involved. So we still have to go through, we have to get the grant, and then we have to engage with families to know what the possibility is. And then all that information will be shared. That in order to do that coordination, we need to be able to share progress of students and what they're working on and where they're at.
So to get the grant, we will be sharing the data on children.
So to get the grant, we need an agreement that says we're willing to do that. Gotcha.
So
Is
this
there-
is just that we would be willing to share the data if the grant is received.
Anonymous, the kids' names, like, I mean,
No, we have a student that, Billy is 2 grade levels behind and they're needing specific supports. They'll be in a group by grade level. And so it's very targeted support.
so would Billy's parents know before we gave them anything?
Everybody who is gonna have their kids engaged are gonna know what the purpose and intent is and how it's designed. Boys and Girls Club does a summer school program, same kind of thing.
All right. Moving on. Kirk Harville. First reading of policy procedure 2020. Course design and selection and adoption. A lot of articles.
Good evening. So tonight we have 2 policies for you. Both of these policies are essential, and both of these policies are updates to our existing policies. For both of them, they are based off of Senate Bill 5462 and Senate Bill 23 or House Bill 2331. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what those bills are and what they have in them, and then I'll go into the specific changes that WASDA made to the policy 2020. So engross Senate Bill 5462, promoting inclusive learning standards and instructional materials in public schools. And what the bill basically says is the state is going to review the learning standards and they're going to rewrite them. And they're going to look for eliminating bias and make the standards more inclusive for all learners. If you read engross Senate Bill 5462, it's broken up into basically probably 5 sections. The first one talks about board responsibility. And it gives the board responsibility of establishing the curriculum standards consistent with OSPI rules. And those curriculum standards should meet the relevant needs of students and ensure quality education for each student. The second portion bullet in 5462 talks about instructional material policy and committee and establishing that. 5462 prohibits discrimination. And so any curriculum or targeted learning targets that are developed cannot discriminate against any other culture or protected classes. And then it finally directs WASDA to create a policy that aligns with Senate Bill 5462. The last little bit of the bill is it has a timeline for OSBI and WASDA to update this. And then from that, local districts have a timeline that we need to adopt a policy that aligns with this bill. And then we report to OSPI 10 days after the board adopts it. And I don't know if that is individual, like once the board adopts it, or if OSPI will send out a survey. And so I'll gather more information on that.
Well, I know, do we know what the deadlines are or the dates that we're working with?
Yeah, the fall. OSBI had to establish it, I believe, by June 2025. And then school districts will be asked to report, I want to say by October. But I can get that to you. So that's the one bill wants to modify it based on. The second engrossed substitute House Bill 2331. That deals with modifying requirements for public school instructional and supplemental instructional materials. And this one, 2331, is, in my opinion, really what WASDA used to modify 2020, School Board Policy and Procedure 2020. 2331, a little bit about it, is it outlines how school boards adopt curriculum. And it talks about, again, discrimination is prohibited in schools. It talks about school boards, school district board of directors, their duties to adopt similar to the previous bill. And then 2331 outlines supplemental instructional material. And what it does is it provides a review process for supplemental curriculum and a process for removing it. And previously we had not had that process, though we have followed the same process. And I'll get more to that in a minute. The other piece of 2331 is it talks about, again, the instructional materials committee and the requirements of who's on that committee and how we get people on the committee. And then it also talks about a complaint system. So those are the two bills that WASDA made changes to 2020 and 2021. So I'll talk specifically about the changes to 2020 procedure. And then in this, I will also share what Meridian School District is currently doing. So one of the first changes to 2020 is if a new course is proposed by and I'll just use the high school. If a new course is proposed by the high school or a major modification to an existing course is proposed, this policy states that the superintendent or designee will review any new courses or changes to existing to ensure that there's rigor, that there's appropriate instructional materials are used, and that it aligns with college and career pathways. So that is just written in there. And I met with Adrian on this as well. And so she kind of shared what we're currently doing, and we currently do that. So any new program course that the high school, I'm just using the high school, proposes, it goes through this adoption, goes through a process. The next portion that they've added in is inclusive instructional materials. And we must adopt inclusive curricula and select diverse, equitable, inclusive, age-appropriate instructional materials. And then they added in there within available materials. So I think OSPI recognizes that there may be Not all curriculums have it, and there may be a limited amount, but it does say within available materials. In speaking with Adrian, this portion is part of our curriculum adoption. There's a rubric that we utilize when we adopt core materials. The rubric is an OSPI tool, but they go through this process. This just codifies it.
When I read this, I watch mainstream news. Do we have are we concerned of any proposed conflicts in the future when we're adopting curriculum with DEI components, and from the federal level, we're hearing that will be impactful?
I will get clarity on that question.
That's better than colleges, right? That's what colleges, right? Yeah.
I don't know that we can answer that.
Don't know that we will, but
We know that a statement from Superintendent Reichall says that we'll follow state law until there's a new law or federal law supersedes that, but I understand why you're asking. I mean, I could see it too, but I don't know that we can, I mean, I don't know what you can look at to get the answers, but
that's just gonna reach out.
yeah. We could explain stuff to see what happens, but yeah.
I'll reach out to our attorney. Other questions on it?
Money don't.
The other piece that they added, is in the instructional materials committee. And they again just codified it, but they have recommendations must include culturally and experientially representative instructional materials. Again, including the protected classes. They tied it to RCW 28A 320-233, which says the board cannot refuse to approve or prohibit any instructional materials for student instruction because they relate to or include a protected class. And so again, that is codified in there. And then the other thing it did is it just separated out the protest procedure for core instructional material. And according to Adrian, this is the same process we currently use. And then the other piece they have is they've included the supplemental material, and supplemental material is different than core instructional material. Core instructional material is board approved, and it goes through this committee. Supplemental material is most times teacher provided, and it tends to fill in some gaps. Or it could be culturally responsive to the students in the classroom, but it is typically teacher chosen. Okay.
And the teachers understand that it must fall within these same policies, even if they're selecting it on their own.
Yes. Questions on this first reading?
So like the instructional materials committee, they'll kind of like be done with a couple other of our curriculums. They'll kind of meet and present, like they'll look at 5 and then kind of present it to us. Is that?
Yep.
Okay, and that'll happen for every piece of curriculum?
That's our current practice for if we adopt a new curriculum, yes.
Yeah. But when we adopt like a math curriculum and they present to us, is that an alternative core then?
No, math curriculum, it could be both, and that I'll get clarity from Adrian.
Okay.
Other questions on 2020? And I guess as always, as you have questions, please send them to me. And it's I find it interesting to read WASDA's updates, but then also go back and read the bill reports and how it just gives you more clarity. And then compare those to the RCW. It's kind of a fun process.
Sounds great.
Sounds terrible.
The next one, again, based off of engrossed Senate Bill 5462 and engrossed substitute House Bill 2331 is Policy and Procedure 2021. Library information and technology programs. And this one, there were fewer changes to it. But what they did is in the policy, they added some legal references to 28A 320 235, which is around supplemental instructional materials. And then 28A 320 230, which is a complaint system for the supplemental materials. Those were the major changes in the policy. In the procedure, they've included additional language around consideration for deselecting materials. And then they've added a request for review and removal of library media materials. And they've outlined that. And that request is request for review. They would seek resolution. Ultimately, the principal will have a decision and then there'll be an appeal process. And again, all decisions must comply with another RCW. Questions on either of these?
So. From a community perspective, looking at. Basically, when parents are potentially unhappy with library content and are requesting to have it removed, which we've seen. Across the country. And the curriculum basically under the same terms when community members are seeing curriculum that they would prefer not be in our public schools. There's now a process.
There's a review process, yeah. And I think the review process has been there. This just is codified. And the review process for core material versus supplementary material is the same. Core material has a little bit longer timeline. Supplemental, I think, is 30 days, and core material, I think, are 90. So there's just a length of time. It's a different.
And remind me again, our comprehensive sex education, how many years was that curriculum in circulation for? Was it like a 5-year review, or what was that on? Do you remember?
It was adopted. I'd have to get that out. I'll find that out. Other questions? Okay.
Jan, are you good?
I'm so good.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Eric. All right, moving on. Finance stuff, let's do it.
Thanks here.
Live and in person.
Yeah, it's much better in person.
Oh,
Oh, I
those
just feel
headphones
like
are
I'm
better.
like, at the screen. So, sorry if last month or 2 weeks ago was a little dry.
All good?
Okay, so I've got 2 months for you, February and March. And once we get into the finance side of things, this is the enrollment trend. Enrollments looks to be going down at the moment from March to April, down 7 in the core program, down 1 in the P3. Some increases in special ed and decreases in running start and dropout re-engagement. I'm still up from the budget, 35 in the core and 2 in MP3 for a total of 17 above budget. So the February and March have been updated here. Just gonna go over March for the most part, unless there's something that sticks out. Beginning fund balances, 1,817,000. So most of the revenues are kind of to be expected. There was this, so midway through the year, they always evaluate. Transportation is funded at the beginning of the year based on the prior year's allocation, and then they look at ridership and those types of things, and we'll make adjustments sometimes. So this is an adjustment to 1.5 million from 1.3, so that was an increase in transportation. And March was the first month that we had that increase, and so the increase ends up being spread out over March and the remainder of the months. So that's positive there. So looking at the revenues for the month were 2,947,000. March, you also do see a little bit of tax receipts starting to come in, so 318,000. Obviously, today's tax day, so most of the taxes coming in April. And we'll see some pretty large numbers, probably about $2 million in the next report. On the expense side, so we've got salaries are kind of leveling out a little bit below 1.8 million. And accounts payable were lower in February, 268,000, and a bit higher in March. And kind of when you have a low month, you tend to see a higher month following. Weren't a whole lot of big items increasing that. Mostly it was just additional activity. We did have a big purchase go out to micro computer systems for 76,000. 23,000 of that was document camp, 52,000 for the monitors or the TV and TV stands for classrooms. And there's another 50,000 for the TVs and stands coming out this month as well. We had 100,000 go out to Northwest ESD for the mental health counselors that Aaron was speaking to earlier. 21,000 for Walk and Discovery. That's our behavioral program that we have that we send some students to. We also paid athletic officials 18,000 for winter and spring thus far, and that's just for the high school. That's going to be expense side of things. As you can see, so down in these budget percentage, this is like a pretty important indicator. If you remember last year, we were actually trending higher than the budget percentages, and we were doing a lot of things to try to reduce costs. This year, we had already made a lot of those reductions in the budget process, and we have a lot of procedures to kind of hold the line on expenditures, and we've been trending below for most of the year. I think all but September, beginning of year purchases. The ending fund balance is about 1.81,795,000. So I would like to see that number never drop below 2 million. So we're working towards building that up at the end of this year a little bit, hopefully. And next month when we get our tax, so typically our lowest month will be March before we get those tax receipts. Part of that is just the way that the revenue streams come in based on, we're expected to get that big inflow of local money.
And again, when we get an adjustment from the state for enrollment.
January.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's you get squared up in January for September through December, and then it's updated every month after that. So that's when you see your increased enrollment. The funds will come. Questions on the general fund finances?
It's not a question, but it's exciting to see almost a 2% difference between.
Oh, yep, down in here. We've done a lot of work for that. It's, as you know, the financial climate's really challenging for school districts right now, but we're hanging in there. Really, it's planning over the last 10 years that has gotten us there. It's kind of a lot of really kind of developed the last couple of years, but take care of facilities, motor pool, and all those things along the way, and be mindful when we're signing association contracts and things like that that put us in a good place. The budget status reports, I looked through these and it's all just kind of business as usual stuff for the other funds, so I'm gonna blow through that. I did want to give an update on the audit. So we're almost done with the audit. It's gone extremely smooth. They have everything complete for the most part, except they're doing a payroll audit. And so within that payroll audit, they're gaining an understanding of our internal control procedures, and I think they had their last interview today with HR on that, and then maybe some follow-up there. And then they'll select some testing. One of the areas that I believe they're testing is kind of what goes into those direct deposit payments that go into employees' accounts and things, and they pay various vendors like for health benefits and those things. So it's good to see them looking into that. And then as well, they will typically select payroll for a group of employees. So they will select based on what they feel are the highest risk employees for misstatement. And they'll review their payroll and look for backup documentation, all that. So that's a positive audit to go through. It's been a while since they've looked at payroll, and so it sounds like they selected it based just on the time frame that it's been since they reviewed it last time. They're complete with the financial statement audit, and they haven't found everything in there seems to be accurate and complete. There may be like a verbal recommendation just on the timing of the submission from that. So if you recall, I was working through where we had part of our process in AP was getting posted. The timing of it was off on the posting, and so we did a lot of work to research that, figure out what it was, identify it, and then make the adjustments, and then I corrected the financial statements and submitted it to them. So by the time I gave it to them, it was corrected. So essentially like it's like the drop dead time of when you can get it done. It's like if you hand it to them and there's something that's misstated, then that's when you can end up with findings and things. So it was a lot of work this year to get everything really in line, identify that, make the adjustments, and then the corrections, and get all of that to them before they got on site. So I don't know, we'll see. They told me it's not gonna be any kind of like major recommendation. If any, at the highest, it'll be an exit recommendation. So when they do their meeting at the end of the audit, it might be something they bring up to you guys, they might not. But anyway, that's the only thing they've found so far. They did in the federal audit, they audited a transitional kindergarten funding for last year. And they haven't found any exceptions there. They also audited food service, no exceptions there as well. Under the accountability audit, they reviewed the financial condition of the district, and everything seems to be okay there as well. They looked at local levy spending and how we account for that, and that's come out clean. They reviewed the state funded professional learning days. So there's a lot of requirements there. Taking in that state funding for those PD days and having proper agendas and people signing in and all that stuff. That's something that gets audited every accountability cycle. Besides payroll, the only thing I think they still have outstanding is employee supplemental contracts. So if for teachers, you have their base contract, but if they're doing anything, above and beyond that, that's a supplemental contract, and that's under review as well. But I would expect they'll probably be done by the end of May. Right now, they've released all the audits except for one, so he's kind of just plugging away.
Nicely done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
As usual.
It's been a lot of work, and we talked the last few years about how budgets hit, audit hits, trying to figure out staffing, and just gotta be a better way. I think they prioritize larger districts sooner, but that's what we have to deal with, right?
That's why we have to deal with it. It was easier 5 years ago. The guy was kind of requested to be first, and they used to come and hit us right in January, and it was nice. But they bumped us coming towards the end of the schedule, and it's where we remained. We bring it up each year, but is what it is.
Say the easy ones for last,
Yeah,
the less findable.
there we go. We try to be easy. Okay, that's it.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Daniel.
Superintendent's report.
Thank you. Yeah, that's all right. It was presented as if it's there. Isn't that what Brian said?
Yeah, yeah.
Pretty go. Wow. Well, I don't need the picture for the first item. That's the failure of the bond. So pretty disheartening to see that we didn't hit 50%, but we do have an update tomorrow at 5 and 600 votes were collected that weren't approximately counted. So I don't have any doubt that we'll meet the validation number. We needed 2727 to validate. And we need, in my mind, over 50% to then at least meet the threshold of just basic majority, right? So we still have the super majority in the state, but I think things that have been discussed already is the economic climate, the volatility in the market, the fear about what the future is gonna hold, and I'll say that it's disheartening that our own legislators were throwing around the idea of raising property taxes in an arena where they're trying to drum up emphasis for revenue and using education as the leverage point, because the range of how much the shortfall is went anywhere from 7 billion to 20 billion, depending on who you're talking to. And that's too big of a range for them to, I think, use fear as a mechanism to try and get revenue. So we did have some things in the budget that I think are going to be good for us, which I'll talk about. But with the middle school, what I said to the reporter is that we're making no decisions. We still need to meet and do some reflection. And I have talked to Jay Yeager about prioritizing what systems we focus on, make sure that keep the building up and running and working well. We'll pull the committee back together again and talk about next steps down the road. Right now.
Something to do with capital levy or something different, or?
So capital levy is really difficult for us. You have to be able to, capital levies are different. So it is 50%, but you get the funding is distributed just like levies are. So in October and April, you get a portion. And so if you do a 2-year or 4-year for a capital levy, then I believe you run the risk of not being able to meet your levy obligation when that comes up in the future. So we see places that have been, Arlington's a good example, and they have had 6 or 7 bond failures. And so their feeling was they would do a capital levy because they wanted to meet that 50% threshold. And then they would bank the funding until they would be able to do different phases of construction. Well, they weren't able to even pass the capital levy. So one of the concepts is let's not teach our community no, right? Let's be thoughtful about when we go to our community. I think clearly this is not any one person's, I mean, this is the effect of what was happening in the environment. And we had no way of knowing that 5 weeks ago or 2 months ago for ourselves in. So those are the answers I have in my head. So we'll see what the rest of what the feedback is. But I am very hopeful we'll hit that threshold for validating and that will be over 50%. And it's just a matter of we didn't see anything come through with changing the 60% to 50% through the legislature. It is always an item that comes up. The fact that there was a bills will always come back in the second. So we had a long session this time. short session is next year. And so wherever a bill progresses to, if it doesn't survive in the short session, it comes back in the previous step, and so will be considered, and so we know that that's gonna be an item, and we'll have some information to share. So stay tuned on this one. It'll be interesting to see where things land on it. Some of this is gonna be like show and tell. So more classroom visits. So I went to Lisa Maxwell's classroom. It was a first grade classroom. Just, I taught high school, and I taught middle school, and to be in the elementary and be with first graders, and they want to know what's my favorite fruit, what's my favorite animal, just things like that. So it was fun. I'm actually going to be with Michelle Whitten's classroom tomorrow with the preschool, and so that'll be fun. We do have a meeting with the advisory group tomorrow, and so what's our topic today? Wellness, so that'll be good. But it really is, Kurt was sharing with staff this morning, we met with our directors, just spending some time in middle school and high school. It's fun to be back with kids. So we always have that option, but it's not always easy to do. Legislative update, the thing that's probably most frustrating as an educational leader in the state of Washington right now is to hear legislators or the governor say that they won't patting themselves on the back, hey, we bought 2.6 or $2.5 billion in for education, and 2.09 of it was required by state law. And so really barely 400 million is what they brought in for 1.1 million students. It's just inadequate. And so overall, K-12 spending went down slightly. My number was original, and I did go back and modify this. So special education, like I said, we did see some things that worked. So the 16% cap went away. So part of the bill for special education, what that means is if you're a district and you have a population of students who are being served with special education services and it exceeds 16%, prior to this law, let's say you're serving students at 20%, you would have to use your own funding from your levy or other funds to meet those students who are beyond. We don't label which kids are beyond the 16%, but to meet the full scope, you would have to use your funding. So now it eliminates that. Okay, so now they're eligible for funding. We just need more special ed funding. So it's a step in the right direction. MSOC, almost 80 million. Equates to about $35 or $40. So, and we know just with insurance costs across the state, 15 to 40% increases, it doesn't even cover insurance costs. So, and then local effort assistance, that is an effort to allow districts that are land poor and they collect levy funding to have additional support to help equalize what happens with larger districts. So you can take a metro like a Bellevue or a Seattle, they're super excited about the levy change because they can go to their community and say, hey, we want to raise the levy. And for a lot of people that live in those areas with the high assessed value, it's pennies on the dollar. And so they're super excited to vote for that. Whereas in a district where it's hard for your community. And so it actually just exacerbates the distance between the districts that have high assessed values and those that don't. So a way to make that work is to have a higher local effort assistance value. So what we said probably a month ago is we know that, well, we hoped that they would get done on the 27th, and now it's going to take some time. We need the governor to sign it into law, and we need OSPI to do some assessments for what each district's going to receive, and we'll know better where we're at.
So we would be one of those effort assistance.
To some degree, well, we've had some really good influx of business and building in our district the last 4 or 5 years. So we've seen 24% increase in assessed value for some years. So maybe we'll have to see. So that's why we need that calculations to be able to know for sure. Yeah. The big three is just really just to mocking because one of the things that went really well across the state is educational leaders, whether they're superintendents or they were lobbyists or they were people working in central office or educators, WEA, WASDA, doesn't matter. Everyone spoke about transportation, MSOCs, special ed. And that was better than ever before. I've been doing this a long time, and haven't seen all of the educational associations speak with one voice, and so that was good, and I think it's going to help as we move into the future. But again, we're in the long game, and there is already talk about a McCleary 2.0. Each one of
The 2.0.
that's right.
The first one really good enough.
But it wasn't actually, MSOC, special ed and transportation, those are all, constitutionally required to be funded, and they're not being funded. So it's one of the reasons why those were a big area of emphasis as well. So we'll leave that alone. And, we'll see where things fall, and we'll go from there, right, Daniel? One of the exciting pieces, Sean Doffing from the high school, Jill Hammock, who is our assistant principal at the middle school, and Heather Powell from the Boys and Girls Club, and then Heidi Eatman, who is vice president of instruction at BTC. We make up the Limitless group from Meridian, and so this is a oh boy, hope I messed this up, Joe. So this is a very crude rendering of the emphasis on our Limitless. We'll stop there. It's good. And so it's that idea of how do we prepare, and actually we heard from our multilingual students today, we want to hear more about college stuff sooner. We need that across our system, and that's part of what we've envisioned on this. So this, I'm really excited that you're seeing this version of this image, because you're going to see Lisa's impact on this as we develop it some more. But the idea is that we look at late elementary, and we have exposure, and we have exploration, and we have ways for us to have students think about what it is that they do and what they might want to do, and then move into planning and preparation. And then you can see that the arrows going, whether it's college or it's trade school or it's military or it's we really want to get into, I want to get away from the high school and beyond plan and talk about what's your pathway. Let's be career focused. If you want to be a doctor, then your career focus means you're going to go to university. So you'll want to plan for colleges that do that, or for courses that do that. If you really want to be a welder that does work, whether it's in commercial or underwater or whatever the case may be, then you're going to maybe go for an apprenticeship. And your pathway is determined by your career path, not how many kids we have going to a second year and a 4-year. Super important, but it doesn't fit every child. And so we want to use this as a way that really embeds the work. And so we think about, okay, our community-based organization of Boys and Girls Club, they have career explorations. They serve 4th and 5th graders and 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. The activities they do help students also get interests around things that we'll be doing in our schools. BTC, we're going to develop dual credit courses that have alignment for students that are going from 9th grade to 10th grade, and then potentially to the skill center or to Running Start or to BTC. But it's not, hey, you're graduating, what do you want to do? It's actually a conversation we've had throughout the whole time. So that's the image. That's what we're working on. Cool. So
you had just mentioned whether they wanted to go to the technical for a technical on campus or BTC Running Start. Are we doing anything to advance our college in the classroom offerings so we can keep kids on campus and engaged?
we have that as well. We also had some, you might have to help remind me, we had some Everett Community College, who we had coursework through, stopped offering it. And so we scrambled to work with Central, Eastern. I'll have to, it's a good question. I'll have to ask Adrian on some of those, but we do have some college in high school classes as well.
It's really great to keep the students on campus as much as we can.
Yeah. Michelle, on that topic, can since we have everybody there, can we remind us what the financial responsibility is when somebody goes to like Whatcom is, even if it's for like one class?
So we have, so if a student is running START,
Mm-hmm.
we retain 7%. Is that correct?
Did you say 7?
7%.
That's all we keep.
Correct.
So
For
yeah, so even if they just do one class up to like 3 classes.
I think it's prorated at that point, but
There's a super FTE that can happen for a student that's in Running Start. That helps us maintain a little bit more of that FTE. So if it's a full-time Running Start student, then basically we would pay Whatcom Community College 93% of the apportionment that we get. We would save 7%. Now, if somebody's like 50-50, we would get to keep a little bit more than half.
Okay.
But if college in the classroom, we keep it all.
And that's about like 10 grand, let's just say, right?
Yep.
Okay. And so if that kid fails, we lose 10 grand. Okay. So what's to say, let's say the kid's a junior and they go to Whatcom and they fail the first time. And then they become a senior. So let's say, okay, let's go back. Let me back up. They go junior. And we say, okay, shame on us. That like shame on us syndrome. And then next year they go again. And because it gives them an opportunity to like put them like on a PIP. And then if they increase and get better, but then they fail again, now the financial responsibility falls on them. Can that happen? Or is that like not, cannot happen?
so there are different phases that can happen. So first off, each time that there is someone not meeting their coursework, they're getting farther and farther behind. So then now you're talking about someone that's not quote unquote on track and a higher risk of dropping out or doing re-engagement. And then at that point, we have a program through VTC called re-engagement or impact. And students would then have an opportunity at no cost to go and obtain a GED, which is not going to give them as many opportunities as a diploma, but will allow them to continue as a student at VTC to obtain an AA, to which they could get a diploma and an AA degree. The problem is we aren't seeing that happen with hardly any of our students. The persistence to move to that far down the road. So some of the pieces around Running Start, I think Running Start was devised with a type of student in mind and is an option for families that we can't deny. But we have students who aren't successful. We have students who are super successful. And being able to provide supports and check-ins along the way is super difficult because they essentially are a college student at that point. They're not in our system anymore. We don't interact with them. And so it's a conundrum and it's a struggle. But there are also some kids who are really successful at it. So
Yeah, but if the kids are in Running Start, they have failed, you're saying they can go to BTC without cost? Because it was my understanding there's still our financial responsibility until a certain age. So we are required to cover the costs of re-engagement.
oh, I meant no cost to the student.
Right, but it's costing us.
Of course it is.
Right.
Okay.
So it's going to cost us over and over and over. And I guess that's where I'm getting at. It's like, so it costs us once, shame on us. So is there a plan where we can come up with, or is that just not a thing? Like, I know on like the private side of, financial stuff, we can go, yeah, okay, shame on you. Okay, next time, shame on us type of thing. Is there a way to say, oh, you failed the first time. You want to take it again? Let's put up like a performance improvement plan and process. If you fail again, you're going to pay us back. So you understand the implications of that $10,000. Your parents need to understand. You're not given that. This is the financial responsibility of what that means. So how do we do that?
You gotta take that up with the state.
Got
But
it.
I think what
But
you're
you-
saying is, to my point, is if we had college in the classroom, the students remain on campus.
Yes.
Student and the parents are being communicated with, because you don't have that barrier of going to the community college.
Yeah, they're
And
not
so-
running away.
Correct. We
yeah,
can't keep them
'cause-
engaged, keep them communicating when they're dropping in their grades. I've seen it at other rural schools where they keep kids on campus with college in the classroom, not sending them to Whatcom, where you can lose them
Mhm.
and lose the dollars and still not see the outcomes you want to see. And that's why it's really good when the parents do attend the Running Start engagement, like, this is what it's gonna look like. We're not gonna have communication with you or your student.
Yeah.
And for some students, it works, and a lot of students, it doesn't. And Jana, I know you know this. Where they don't excel and they're not going to class and they're sleeping in and they're staying up playing video games. And our
They
hands are
turn
tied.
18 and you can't do anything.
Yeah, so
So,
I don't know, that's my talking points, is I'd love to see more available on campus.
yeah, I think, so a couple of things, we're having this conversation, and if we back up a slide to the limitless, part of this is really good guidance, right? Part of this is making sure students know what's available to them. We have students that go to Running Start because they're really driven and they want to do that, or they feel like they want to try something that's not as a stringent schedule as every hour is dictated and where you're going. And they know they can go to 3 classes and spread throughout the day, and maybe they don't meet every day, right? Or maybe they want to try and see what different teachers do, right? So they go for different reasons. We don't have any measure where we can say, you didn't perform well, you can't go. We don't have that authority, right? It is something that is provided by the state. Now, we can provide opportunities. So one of the things that we're really is working on our guidance. We're also doing the open doors as a way to keep students in our district, to support them when they are struggling. We have students who are struggling, and it's not because they're playing video games. It could be, but there are students who are truly struggling because they have life circumstances, and they need to be able to have supports for that. And we think we can do a better job than anybody else to provide that support. The other thing is, we have some difficulty with college and high school, because a lot of times faculty at colleges dictate who is allowed to teach a course or not. For instance, Steve Lawrence does not qualify with Everett Community College to teach college and high school because he doesn't have the master's.
Correct.
But he has 30 years of exquisite experience and probably could run circles around some of those people at that college. So there's some difficulty. Not all the requirements are the same with different universities, if that makes sense. So we are looking at this. There are districts who don't invite community college to come and present on dual credit night. If you're someone that wants to do Running Start, that's a college program, then reach out to the college, have a conversation with them, and set it up. I'm not sure we're gonna go there yet, but there are different ways that we can look at this. And we are looking at it. Good question, thank you. Jenna. Other thoughts? Okay, so we've sent this out, and we shared with you, Mr. Torgerson is taking care of his family, and so We have a little more than 6 weeks left, and so with the knowledge and the understanding that Mr. Kratzik has at the middle school, the obvious choice was to re-engage him at the middle school and to help them finish strong. And then with Sean, Mr. Duffin, we are supporting him, both Kurt and I, and Aaron on occasion are going over and supporting the high school when they have either lunch supervision or timing and things of nature. He has a couple of things. We're gonna be going to I can't think of it, a workforce at the ESD, and so Kurt's gonna be at the high school, and just Dobbin will be with me and go down to that. So we're covering the high school, and every week we're like, okay, what do we need? Where do you need me? That kind of thing. So it's gonna work fine. Good. Senior presentations were fantastic this year. What do you think, Kennedy?
Oh, it was a lot better than I thought.
What do you mean?
I can't talk for 13 minutes straight, but I did it, and the people were actually really nice, so it's pretty good.
Yes, I think the thing that was really a marked improvement for me was that in the past, there had been a lot of emphasis on what you did in high school. And that was much less an emphasis and more on what was your interest inventory? What are things that you've been exploring? Some students have been doing an internship or have been involved in some things and talking about next steps. And that's where we want to go with this. And as we talk about that progression, a high school activity, that high school beyond that culminating senior presentation, super valuable in doing a public demonstration, right? But to be able to talk about what you've done to prepare yourself to what your next steps are, it's awesome. And I felt like we get them going down that road, so. Just good.
I know, like, once you understand why you do it and actually do it, it's better. And just like letting students know that beforehand makes it better.
And sometimes it's hard. We tell you and we tell you and we tell you, and you don't know until you do it, right?
You have senioritis already, so it's
Right.
Once you do it, you're like, oh, this was not bad, this was
not bad, and you get a free lunch.
yeah.
A follow-up, if you remember, viewing the history day projects over here. They all went, well, three of the teams, so a team, so three groups went and presented and they didn't place, but man, they had a really great experience going and being among others and seeing what else was there. And as you can tell, they're fairly young, so they'll be back at it again. So I wanted to celebrate them for that. And really interesting projects as well. So good job for them. And then we also had the talent show last week and some photos. We had one of the things that was, I think Zorwa Polon is a kindergartner that did a, well, why don't you share it, Kennedy?
No, he like did the I have a dream speech and he like did all the like kind of like acting like Martin Luther King, I guess, and like how he presented himself, and I was really good. It was like I was like, you're in kindergarten, you can read this all. I was like, I cannot do that. That's also cool.
So, you know, they had again, talents and assets, right? Given an opportunity and a stage for our students to demonstrate what they can do. It's pretty cool. We do have a cultural fair on Friday. I think it's at 6, but I'm gonna double check that. It's at the high school, but actually the multilingual group at Irene is working with the high school multicultural club, and they're putting this on and they're inviting families, and they're pretty excited about it, to be able to talk about their culture, just demonstrate a little bit tonight. And so being able to do what we can to demonstrate and make space for people to share their culture and help them feel like they belong is what we were envisioning when we talked about it with the strategic plan, right? And so pretty exciting to see that come together. And then, so we got the cultural fair, we have school board meeting on the 14th and the 28th, and I neglected to put it on here, but Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, I'll be at the superintendent's conference, and then that really, except for the 1-day trip with Mr. Dopping, that's all I have left this year, so that's what I have. Very cool.
All right, well, do we have any information from our student board representative this evening?
Yeah, we have the district-wide advisory tomorrow, like Dr. had mentioned, and we're focusing on wellness. Logan had a track meet tonight, so she was unable to make it. She made the agenda for it, so yeah, we're focusing on wellness and all of the things people have been doing in their own district advisory group to share out, so that'll be exciting, and then afterwards we'll have more information about what has been talked about.
Cool.
So considering you're a senior, will you be joining our board meeting on like the 28th so we can recognize all of your service? Or what, like, as you get closer and closer to graduation, like, when are you tapping out?
We schedule that.
I just didn't know if you'll be attending, because there's like so much going on at the end.
Yeah.
You're gonna be around,
Yeah, I'll be around.
and I know elections and everything already took place. Do we know who next year's representatives are?
It's on the agenda, I think, at the 20th.
Perfect, okay, great. Thank you for
Good
everything.
questions, yeah. Good question.
It's been a joy. You're gonna go do great things. You will do.
We have any information from the other board directors?
July 16th,
I'm sorry?
July 16th.
Oh,
That was,
thank you.
What?
We're good.
Oh,
I come back on the 15th.
Excellent.
Sweet, fresh fish for lunch. Okay, well, we can sign some official documents and adjourn. Thank you, everyone.
thank you. Are you still alive? You're still alive?